Today's video has been sponsored by Square Enix. In full honesty, I've never in my life been an MMORPG guy. I played Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 when it came out, and it was an experience, much in the same way that getting a root canal is also an experience. I played Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn when it first came out, and at the time it was really decent, making bold, innovative decisions like adding a jump button. I even played the game both on PC and PlayStation 3, and even with all the power and might of the cell processor, boy, PS3 was struggling. Now you know an MMO is a truly fulfilling and immersive experience when both your college professors and your significant other at the time are truly disappointed in you. Unfortunately, however, life responsibilities would lead me to stop the game for years. But now that I've returned and gotten the chance to revisit the game, I found one of the greatest masterpieces in the Final Fantasy series waiting for me. Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward. But first, a message from today's sponsor, Square Enix, and their epic mobile title, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. All the time, I hear you guys saying that you want to play an incredible turn-based Final Fantasy game like the ones near and dear to your heart. And you'll find that right here with Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. Most of the great Final Fantasy characters are in this one. Squall, he's in this one. Cloud, he's in everything. Kenny Crow? Wait, why'd y'all put Kenny Crow in the game? He's in this one. Luna Freya? Luna Freya is in this one more than she is in Final Fantasy XV. And it's not just the nostalgia talking either, as this game has an amazing cast of original characters alongside its own rich story, deserving of the Final Fantasy name. Truly, this game is thicker than a bowl of oatmeal, sporting over 3 seasons of content, which is more seasons than your favorite anime has or will ever have. And with them doing all sorts of things like collaborations and events, they ensure you'll always have new content to play or look forward to. So be sure to check out Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, available now on the Apple App Store, Google Play, and the Amazon App Store. Being a JRPG content creator with an emphasis on the Final Fantasy series, I couldn't help but feel a cloud looming over me from not having continued playing Final Fantasy XIV, an MMO that is apparently so good that WoW fans get mad every time you mention it. So I dived back into Heidelin to see what awaits me, and they added many epic quests, such as doing groceries for Minfilia. But it's really when you start to hit patch 2.55 that the game really and truly starts to hit different. Spoilers for 2.55, skip to the time code if that means anything to you. You and the homies of the 7th Dawn get framed for an assassination. Boy, this dude Raban starts popping off like crazy. You start trying to run and get out of Ul'dah because the guys are coming for you, and then one of your homies is like, nah, I'm gonna stay behind and be the hero. And then you gotta keep running because you gotta get out of there because they're gonna kill you, and then another one of your homies is like, nah, I'm gonna stay behind and be the hero. And boom, before you know it, you really ain't got no homies left, and boy, 2.55 was wild. Then you cross over into 3.0. Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward. This is where Final Fantasy XIV goes from being a fairly decent MMO to simply being a great Final Fantasy. When trying to remake FF14 to fix the disaster of 1.0, Yoshida and his team had to remake an entire MMO on $3 and anxiety. The team at this point had the budget and time to really be able to focus and make their own creative vision, and it absolutely slaps. There are numerous improvements here over A Realm Reborn. Quest actually means something greater instead of going to Walmart for Minfilia. A combination of better voice acting and voice directions make characters sound more alive and filled with emotion. The story focuses much more deeply on its characters in a way that A Realm Reborn just didn't, and boy, the characters here are absolutely fire in this one. You got Giga Chad. You got I Want to Speak to the Manager. You got the Pope. Y'all already know where this is going, huh? You got Anger Issues. You got Fivehead. And a bunch of French words that I cannot pronounce. Pretty much all the greats are here. Characters like Astinian, however, are what impressed me the most. Now, this character is extremely special for anyone who's played Dragoon. In true Final Fantasy tradition, paying respect to the legacy of previous Dragoons, this dude loves saying some passive-aggressive shit until later on when he becomes kinda cool. After the Warrior of Light is exiled from the initial 3 city-states, you and your boy Alphino decide to lay low in Final Fantasy Canada. a gothic medieval kingdom filled with knights, dragons, and a century-old, totally not evil theocracy, led by a totally trustworthy, totally not evil pope. The lines between friend and foe are blurred as the Scions are out of commission, and some of A Realm Reborn's notable antagonists act in their stead. After running through the snowy mountains and thirsting over Sir Emric, it turns out that Barthandelus is indeed the bad guy after all. Huh, never saw that one coming. The other antagonist is a centuries-old dragon leading the charge against the Ishgardian city-state. And this, my friends, is where Heavensward starts to hit different. Nidhogg's motivations are simple. Revenge. No fallacy or ghost of childhood attachment, just revenge. This is a story about a millennia-long war, its origins, the people it affects, and how those people change afterwards. It's the kind of story you would expect from a Super Nintendo-era Final Fantasy, and it's easily some of the best writing the series has had since entering the HD era. And while, yes, the story is built on some JRPG tropes, they sprinkle on some of them good seasonings, add a little bit of hot sauce, and the result is an instant classic. They also made some excellent gameplay additions in this one, like flying. It's really simple to do. All you gotta do is get all the ether currents in the area, which aren't marked on the map, and then you just gotta do all the quests in the area that give you the ether current. Then you just gotta do the dungeon or the trial in that zone, and then you gotta do that in every zone. And then we flying, boy! Look at all those peasants walking on the ground. Absolutely pathetic. Speaking of zones, each and every one of Heavensward's new locations are the stuff that Final Fantasy games are made of. Boy, they put the gravy on this one. The addition of flight adds a new level of verticality to exploration that was lacking in A Realm Reborn. Locations like the Sea of Clouds and Dravinian hinterlands are as big as they are colorful, with many zones being 2 or 3 times larger than their A Realm Reborn counterparts. All of the space is put to good use too, as the world is marked with incredible visual storytelling, in which it's made obvious that the land has been ravaged for centuries by the long war between man and dragon. Simply put, it's the most Final Fantasy that Final Fantasy has Final Fantasied, maybe ever. And I haven't even begun to talk about the music. Up until the game's latest expansion, Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers, each expansion has had their main themes composed by the legendary Nobuo Uematsu. The game's main composer, Masayoshi Soken, then turns around and composes the rest of the game's music, all while using Uematsu's melody as a leitmotif across the rest of the soundtrack. The end result being a fantastic FF soundtrack that's both new and varied in its approach, but still has the heart and soul of a classic-sounding Uematsu FF. And you will definitely enjoy the music of Heavensbangers. So if you aren't playing Final Fantasy XIV, or you're playing A Realm Reborn and struggling, just know that one of the better Final Fantasy experiences is waiting for you. And in a franchise with as much history as this one, that's really saying something. And as for my thoughts on Stormblood and Shadowbringers, subscribe, click the bell icon, and you might be finding out sooner than you think. Shout out to patron Great Reek and the rest of the Ultima community.